believe that was the only ones that you guys wanted me to do. Yep. Everything else stays the same.
Okay, would any member of council like to ask a question or offer a comment? Councilwoman Murphy.
Can we have this listed at our next meeting for first reading?
Can if we move it and second it and we have all ayes, or
Mhm.
3 ayes.
I make a motion to go forward with Mr. Sarlo's revised ordinance.
All right, it's been moved. And we have a second. Denise, would you please poll the council?
Councilwoman Murphy?
Yes.
Councilman Coppola?
Yes.
Councilman Papaleo?
Yes.
And Councilman Jones?
Yes.
All right, we have all ayes. Would you, Mr. Negrin, would you introduce the historical element for discussion?
Well, the council had asked that this be listed again for discussion. We did invite members of the Historic Commission here, but we had advised them that we might be taking a field trip down to Grove Street. So we didn't want them to come at 7 o'clock and then we would be back here, maybe 7:45 or 8 o'clock. So in deference to them, this topic should be held off until the very last portion of our meeting, to see if they arrive and can then participate in the discussion on this topic.
Without objection, I would just have one comment. The one thing we may want to do is ask the planning board attorney to review the status of that amendment. I said the research I've done, and Tom was probably there, so he might know more of the history than I do, but there is no record of a public hearing adopting the historic element as part of the master plan. It looks like they just did it by plain resolution, which may not have been in conformance with the municipal land use law.
Okay.
So I would suggest that we ask the planning board attorney to at least look into the history of it, to make sure all the procedures were followed, and then we can talk to the historic commission about the other issues. Because the other issue that comes up is that the historic element actually lists 22 properties as being historical, where the empowering resolution, there was only 9 or 10 or something like that. I don't remember the number. So a lot of the original properties that were designated under the master plan were rejected by a previous mayor and council as being historic, or I should say rejected. They didn't adopt them as historic.
Okay.
So I just think we need to at least get some research into the history and make sure that everything was followed properly.
I think that requires a second.
Is that a motion?
Is that a
Yes,
motion?
I'll make that a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Denise, would you poll the council, please?
Councilwoman Murphy?
Yes.
Councilman Coppola?
Yes.
Councilman Jones?
Yes.
And Councilman Papaleo?
Yes. And we will certainly allow the Historic Commission, when and if they're able to attend, to speak to whatever parts of this that they would deem appropriate. Mr. Negrin.
Next item would be the HVAC for Borough Hall. The report on this item from the Department of Public Works is last week. They had a contractor come in to look at our HVAC system. And if you bear with me for a moment.
Sure.
The compressor for the Borough Hall is no good at this point in time. They would like to get one that is rebuilt. We would get a 5-year warranty on it. The cost is about $9,000, and the superintendent instructed the general repairer to obtain at least 2 other quotations since it's over the $5,400 quote limit. I spoke with him today. He's in the process of doing that, and we could expect that process to be completed, within 24 hours. But that means there would be, an installation. The equipment would have to arrive, it would have to be installed. We have no date at this point in time as to when that will take place.
All right, I know the council might have some questions. My concern is that Thursday is supposed to be 92 degrees. I think what you're saying is, based on this timeline, that's not going to take place.
It's not likely. what I would offer the employees is that if we could put a note out tomorrow, if they want to work through lunch, those that would have to stay can then take that time on Thursday and Friday. If we need an additional hour or two, then they could make up that time next week, through working through a lunch or an additional hour.
So we're going to offer flexible hours, flexible time
Yeah,
this
I mean,
week.
and certainly working through lunch on Thursday and Friday would close the offices by 3 o'clock. If you throw in another additional hour, it would be early afternoon when Borough Hall would close.
All right. Council, yes, Councilwoman.
How old
Murphy.
is the compressor? The one that is no good?
I'm sorry, I don't have that detailed information, I'd have to get that from the superintendent.
Just to confirm, it's Alan, 3 o'clock is when that be the proposed time to let the employees out of the building?
No, earlier, for 3 o'clock would be certainly Thursday and Friday. Everybody could work through lunch and would be dismissed at 3 o'clock, having put in a normal workday. But if they, we could maybe even have an earlier starting time. If we want to get people here a little bit earlier.
And you also allow them the flexibility of leaving an hour early and making it up later.
And they could make the time up, or they could certainly take personal day or vacation time if they wanted to. That's all available.
Alan, I have a question. The superintendent of DPW recommended a rebuild for $9,000. Did he offer you any reason why he wanted to go with the rebuild, other than, of course, it was cheaper?
No, I haven't had the opportunity to discuss it specifically with him. I was speaking with the general repairer, who, had gotten that instruction.
Just to fill in that, I think he's probably contemplating, because we were considering doing a whole HVAC refurb, so he may
Right.
be thinking that to get something temporary, because there's no way you would get a whole HVAC design and changeover
No.
accomplished anytime soon, so I'm sure that's probably what his thinking was.
Councilwoman Murphy.
It just seems that with the summer coming and the hot weather, that this should be a priority for the comfort of all the employees in the building.
But ultimately, it's our responsibility to make it a priority or not. And I agree with you. I didn't mean to correct, it sounded like I was correcting you. No, I was just stating that I agree, that I personally feel that we need to resolve this. This has
Yeah.
waited too long. I think
Mhm.
you agree.
Especially when he's saying there's like no timetable, so it seems almost like indefinite, like there should be something moved on it quickly.
Alan, do we need a motion to approve this emergency replacement, or is that?
No, it would be done by our purchase order. He's getting his quotations as soon as we fulfill that requirement, which, I would expect by the next day he can place the order. Then it's a matter of availability. My understanding, Carrier does have one in stock, so that would help, when the installation could take place. I'm not sure. But Mr. Lynch is aware of the concerns of the employees and the temperature.
All right. Our Borough Clerk, Denise Don Diego. Denise, do you want to offer any comments at this point for yourself or any of the employees that might have spoken to you?
No, I mean, I think we can do what you can do as soon as possible, and you're right, it should be a priority, absolutely. Because the girl last week at surgeries, I mean, I have a unit on my wall that they put in last year, and we had heat like 98 and 100 when we were upstairs on the second floor. But they were very concerned, they were very upset last week, they didn't feel well, and they were nervous that the temperatures were going to be in the 90s, and here they are without air conditioning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alan, can I ask a follow-up question? I'm sorry,
No,
Councilman.
our last meeting when we were here, we were sweltering,
Yeah.
so.
Alan, what must the council do? Where are we with the HVAC renovation? And what must the council do to move this forward at this point?
Well, back in March, I had sent a memorandum to the council representatives who were working on this issue along with the superintendent of public works. We provided all of the information, and we were hoping that a convenient date would be put together for them to meet to discuss the proposal that we had in hand. and then accomplish any field visits or references, and then come back to the council with a recommendation. And Councilman LaFrida, in deference to him, has a certain amount of expertise in this area, and we wanted to provide him with the opportunity of looking at what we had accomplished so far. So I think that just needs to happen with the superintendent and a little direction as to, the different recommendations that were made, and come back and have another discussion on it. And then following that, financing would have to be looked at, and of course, then a bid process would have to be gone through.
All right. Could I ask you to send another email out to that committee, mentioning to them our concern and the urgency to meet as promptly as possible? Anthony, did you have something?
I'm sorry, no.
Okay. Councilwoman Murphy.
It just seems like, the whole process now looks like it's going to be like an extended period, that it's not something that's going to be done quickly with everything that you just said. You have to meet, field, do a field thing and everything else. It seems like it's going to be in the winter.
Yes.
The short term, the repair of the compressor, that would be very short, we hope. But the long-term solution, yes, you're absolutely right, would be more of a process, because some of the alternatives would involve demolition of the piping system that we have. We would have to talk about how that would affect services, that where we would rehouse certain employees while that's going on. All of that would have to be planned out, just as we had a very specific plan when we renovated this building 20-plus years ago, and what we did with the staff and how we accomplished certain continuity of services under those circumstances. So this is an involved process, planning as well as implementation.
But to clarify, it's the opinion of our Superintendent of Public Works, yourself, and Mr. Lynch, that this short-term fix will at least get us through a couple of months, if not the rest of the year.
It will, but it may bring us back to the same problem that we've experienced before with this HVAC system. So, that's we do have to look for a long-term cure, and keep working on that.
Thank you. Councilwoman Murphy.
Alan, when was this first, brought to the attention where this group met? Because it seems like they met and they had some momentum, and then it just dropped, and now we're back with the problem that now we have to quickly find a solution to. So obviously, it was on the radar a while ago.
Yeah, it's been on the radar, I would say late 2011, 2012. We've had discussions before the full mayor and council that they've been ongoing because they've been part of the budget process, to talk to that end of it, the financing of this project. So every budget year, 2012 and 13, we've had this listed as a budget item.
So we have the money in the budget to take care of this?
I think we may have some of the money in the budget. I'd have to take a look and see whether we did make some appropriation.
I don't think it was nearly...
It may not be adequate.
We're looking at
right.
over $300,000.
Yeah.
And that doesn't include the engineering and the construction oversight and supervision, so...
Do you know how much we put aside?
I don't recall, but I believe it's less than 200. But Alan can confirm. That number's coming around my head.
I'll
based on
provide
whatever.
information to the council.
All right, so I think at least the four of us are in agreement that we need to get this done this year, and it's going to cost a lot of money, but we're already throwing $9,000 at it that we shouldn't need to. So if there is no objection, we'll move on? Great, thank you. All right, approval of the 2013 Clean Communities Grant proposed budget. Mr. Negrin, could you just introduce that? And then I think we need a motion, is that correct?
Yes, for the consent agenda. We have been receiving this grant for many, many years now, and the Department of Public Works makes up a budget as to meeting the requirements of the Clean Communities Grant, taking into consideration, the desires of the mayor and council and other entities. and we provide that to the council in the form of a consent agenda, and then the Department of Public Works would implement it, and we would spend the grant money in accordance with the budget and the desires of the mayor and council. So the DPW has proposed something that is very traditional, and not out of line with what they've done in the past.
Are there any questions or comments to be offered? I will need a motion to approve the 2013 Clean Grants proposal to be placed on the consent agenda.
So moved. I'll make the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Denise, would you poll the council?
I'm sorry, did Ed?
Second, yes.
Councilman Murphy?
Yes.
Councilman Capola?
Yes.
Councilman Nolan?
Yes.
Councilman Papalato?
Yes. All right. At this point, we don't normally do council reports or mayor's report, but I would like to place into the record, if I can pull it up, I ask your indulgence for a moment. I received this email from the mayor today. This is an explanation of why Kindercamack Road was shut down. The mayor emailed myself, and I think he sent it to the rest of the council. At approximately 11 p.m. on Monday night, which was last night, there was a call for a potential water line break in front of 172 Kindercamack Road, near Rucker's Place. Upon inspection, there was a mixture of oil and water coming out of a rupture in the street. The River Edge Fire Department was notified, who coordinated with the River Edge Police Department and the Bergen County Police Department. Hazmat units from the New Milford and Bergen County responded. OEM established an operations center. The River Edge Department of Public Works and the Bergen County Department of Public Works arrived with materials to set up berms. Since it was a mixture of oil and water, United Water and PSE&G were notified. Kindercamack was closed to traffic and temporary berms were set up to channel spillage away from storm sewers and into a holding area. By midnight, there were 12 agencies coordinating their efforts. The mayor made a site inspection and was impressed by the quick coordination. It was determined that an underground power line running beneath Kindercamack had ruptured. This high-tension power line goes from the PSE&G substation in New Milford to the PSE&G substation in Maywood. It runs beneath Kindercamack Road. The power lines are encased in a pressurized pipe that is filled with cooling oil. When the pipe ruptured, the pressure forced the cooling oil to the surface. The exact cause of the leak is still unknown, but may be related to a water main leak. By 8 a.m. on Tuesday, PSE&G had clamped down the line and the leak was stopped. Cleanup contractors are cleaning the areas. Anticipated that Kindercamack may partially reopen for a single lane within a few hours. This was, I think, sent to me at around, pardon me, 1 second. I think it was sent around 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The exact quotes, I'm sorry, next few hours. PSE&G is currently trenching the area of the break to make a permanent repair, which should take another day or so. PSE&G will eventually make all necessary repairs to Kindercamack in the surrounding area by use of outside contractors. Now, I also received a text message as fire liaison that Company 2, Engine 2 was placed at Company 1 during the shutdown of Kindercamack. I then received another text message around 5, 6 that said Company number 2 was back at, Engine 2 was back at Company number 2. If the council, without objection, I'd like to give Neil Carroll, Tom, not Neil, I don't know why I did that, Tom. Tom Smith, our OEM officer, a moment to just share anything that might have been left out from the mayor's report. Is there any objection? Okay, Tom, would you come forward and just speak to the record of where we are with this that has not already been mentioned in the mayor's report?
Well, right now, where we're at is the road is open completely for traffic to flow in both directions. There's still the repairs, as you mentioned, that will be ongoing for a period of time, but it's back to pretty close to normalcy compared to, like 11 o'clock last night or 1 o'clock in the morning, which was really somewhat chaotic in the first couple hours, which is often the case. And it's
Now, I believe you were on site and the mayor was on site.
Yeah.
Our volunteer fire department was on
I
site.
can give you the complete list.
Yeah.
It's River Ridge Fire Department, Police Department, DPW, OEM, New Milford Fire, New Milford Hazmat, Bergen County Hazmat, Bergen County DPW, New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, CHU, Public Service Overhead Group was there, Underground Group, Environmental Group, Bergen County Police, United Water, Chef Fletcher Kramer, Box 54. Box 54 supplies coffee and stuff for the volunteers during the night as it goes on. Our mayor was there, obviously, and then some of the damages that occurred and some of the things that we will be collecting information on is, the homeowners area out on the front was damaged by some of the materials. We took quite a bit of dirt from 140 Kinnecamack Road, which is the park there at Kinnecamack, Maine, because in the early stages we had to stop that material from flowing into the storm drains. And we didn't have enough hazmat material just in River Edge's vehicles, and we were waiting for New Milford to come. So we used dirt and we diked, and we set up several different dikings to hold probably in excess of 100 gallons of oil and water mixture. So a very, very small amount got into the storm drain, so that diking worked properly, and then we set it up and secured it more officially when New Milford Hazmat came with the proper materials to set it up with. There's quite a bit of materials that we used by all of the departments that came there, but I think for the council, and it's very, very important, we talk about mutual aid, and it doesn't ring true so much until you get something like this. In a matter of just within 30 minutes, you had River Edge, all of River Edge was there, police, DPW, fire. New Milford, we called their hazmat team. That hazmat team arrived on scene within 15 minutes after we...
And if I'm not mistaken, they were all volunteers too?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, just about everybody in the fire service in this whole area is all volunteer. And then as more people started to come in, and we had outstanding support from Bergen County in terms of bringing in support for people with knowledge and bringing in support for large trucks with excessive amounts, or not excessive, but the amount of sand that we needed to do overall diking to get this thing under control and to secure Kinnecamack Road. There was, at no time was there any negative interaction. Clearly, the fire department for River Edge was in charge of the scene, but it was all a share. And it was because the mutual aid system, which was River Edge, Oradell, and New Milford, our primary mutual aid, as well as the extended mutual aid towns, as well as getting into Bergen County hazmat and all those other things. Very, very, very relaxed atmosphere because everybody works together all the time. So we had an incident. We had incident command, which is the method that you use to control 20 elements that are going on all at the same time. The training that all of the different officers from all the different departments went through was clearly there. You could see it. Everything was done very orderly. The residents were notified. The police had, made sure that no traffic came. Not that they would have gotten through all the equipment anyhow, but they locked the area off. And it was a very smooth operation where it could have been really a very difficult operation. Just in the beginning, we could have had multiple automobile accidents there because of the very slippery material that came out of the ground onto Kinnecamack Road. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. We could have, at any other time of day perhaps, we might have had 30 or 40 cars just slipping and sliding going up and down Kinnecamack Road, and that really would have compounded the problem. So some luck was with us, but it was a very, very well organized procedure, and as it ended, everybody went back to do what they had to do. In the meantime, today I've been collecting from the different organizations what resources they used, because if we have an ordinance on the books, it's been on the books probably 20 years or more, which gives the borough the ability to go after the company or the person or whomever that is responsible for the spill. So that ordinance is in place. I sat with Alan for a few minutes today just to make sure that we had that, and we will be getting that. In fact, Public Service has already started to replenish for New Milford Hazmat and other organizations the materials they need, so if they get another call tonight, they will have it. They used everything they had. So instead of going through having to get money reimbursed immediately, or which immediately in the borough is 3 weeks or 4 weeks, they actually supplied them with the materials that they're going to need. So if something happens tonight or tomorrow, they would be able to handle that. But it worked really well. We called the mayor very early in the scene to get him down there so that he knew what was going on, and we then anticipated he would share that, with the council. We've had a few different things over the years, and this was really smooth. I'm very pleased with how all the emergency services work together. I'm very pleased with the interaction between our police department and so on and so forth. We got communications out this morning because the roads were going to be closed. The traffic had to be detoured so that we didn't get an overload of traffic around Brogan Road for Cherry Hill and Roosevelt schools. So there was a lot of activity, but it went really well. So if you have any questions, or if any of the members have questions.
I'm going to open it to the council in a minute. I would like to, I'm sure the council shares with me our appreciation, our gratitude to all of our volunteers, to all of our paid employees, to everyone who was involved. I think it was an outstanding effort. I did want to ask one question before I opened it up for the council to ask questions. I believe our waterway that separates us on the southern border is Coles Brook. Is that correct?
Well, yes, on the southern, and yes.
Okay. Coles Brook. Now, I believe that there was a news report that there was concern that there might be some spillage or hazardous material heading into the creek. Do you have any information about that?
Last night, the New Milford Hazmat team, a group of men, went from the immediate scene over to Coles Brook. They lit up the area to see if they could see any sheen on the water. They took the materials that they would have needed to, capture that oil sheen if it was there. And it looks like we got lucky, and there was little or nothing. The same thing in Hackensack Avenue. In the past, that would have been a bigger problem, but when Hackensack Avenue was redone some years ago, going back quite a few years, the drains that came off of Kinnicamack were then changed to go to the Coles Brook area rather than right out to the river.
So there was no concern on our western border, the wetlands, that any travels from...
There certainly was concern, but based on what we did last night...
eastern border.
And early this morning, there did not seem to be any amount of issue there. We'll now, after some heavy rains today, my plan was to go down there tomorrow to see if anything has perked or has anything made it through the storm drains that we didn't see last night.
I'd like to again thank you and everyone who's been involved, council, for comments or questions. Councilwoman Murphy.
I was told that they don't know if they can identify whether it was the power line that caused the pipe to break or the pipe that caused the power line to break. Is that still being...
The last thing I heard, Councilwoman, is that the water, but again, this is not confirmed. The last thing I heard was that the water issue started first, and then that complicated the problem with the oil.
And also,
but I haven't received that in writing from anybody at this point, so I can't be 100% sure.
That electric line is one that they were in the process of changing, the one that went from New Milford to Maywood. Isn't that
the
something
one we
that...
had heard about, but the bigger issue is this 230,000 volts. Mm-hmm. So that's a very high level of voltage, and that gets very, very hot, and that's why their water system is right there in the same location. And the early concern that they had was that they had to keep that cool, because we could have had a much bigger problem had that the electricity line, power lines get hot, we could have lost significant area of power within, and potentially, I really don't know for sure, but 230,000 volts would probably make a big bang.
But is that like normal, to have a water thing cooling, something like that? That's regular
In this
procedure?
area, as far as I know, that's the way they do it on the very high voltage.
Uh-huh.
I don't believe it's
Seems strange.
water, I think it's oil.
It's the oil cools
Yeah.
the electrical, but there is water in there to maintain or to assist with that. That's why the oil line is there.
Seems like odd to have the two together like that.
It seems to work though.
Well, not last night.
That's the key.
All right,
It seems
things
to work.
work. Oh, yeah, just a question.
Yes, Mr.
Thanks for your hard work and you and the guys. Just a quick question that I had. How are the ranks, the number of volunteers? Because I always think, wow, I mean, that's a massive thing. And I was like, wow, I don't know how you guys do it. I mean, God bless. But it just seems like a daunting task. And I wondered, I mean, how are our ranks? How's the bench doing? I mean, do we have I know it's volunteers, so it's hard, I would imagine, to get guys to want to, or women to,
I think River Edge is like most towns in Bergen County at this point. We have a fairly good number of volunteers, but we don't have a really large number of new volunteers coming on board. There are members in both Company Number 1 and Company 2 here in River Edge that are 40-plus years of doing this, and they're still in response mode. Because there aren't, they're not getting pushed out by all the young guys.
Not a feeder system
behind us.
coming through.
Yeah, now we do, I'm not saying we're like in dire straits with not having people. We definitely have a good number of young people. The problem is we get them when sometimes they start junior, senior year high school. We get to maintain them through college when they're home. The real issue becomes is when they get to a point to perhaps they get married and they're thinking about getting a home. People coming into the workforce at 23, 24, 25 are hard pressed to be able to afford a home in River Edge or almost all the towns. That's when we tend to lose them at that point. So we have a good young group and we have a very senior group. The whole,
transition.
there is a hole in,
Yeah.
in that 25 to 45.
Right. Thanks.
Good. Well,
You're tired.
Yep. I guess, again, please extend to everyone as the OEM, the council's thanks, my personal thanks, the personal thanks of each member of the council for being there when we need you, always, 2 in the morning, and taking care of these things for us. And thank you for coming before us unexpectedly tonight.
One last comment.
Sure.
It all works because everybody that's involved is River Edge.
Yeah.
We don't get any nonsense on fire scenes or on emergency scenes. It all pulls together, whether it's OEM, fire department, police. And even if we disagree, and we agree to disagree. And that's why it works so well.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
We have Phyllis Angelo here for the historic element.
Phyllis, could I ask you to come forward, please? The council kind of postponed the discussion about the historic element, and we'd like to hear your comments and thoughts. Please come forward. Alan, would you do us a favor and please just introduce the topic again for us?
Well, probably Chairperson Angelo is probably the best person to do that, but this involved a process whereby several homes in River Edge would receive a historic designation. And there was a process through the planning board and the historic commission that had to be provided. I believe where we left off, the mayor had asked for the proofs of that process. And that's where there's been some discussion. Phyllis, before you came, the council asked for Arthur Neese, the planning board attorney, to review the process that had been gone through and render an opinion as to where we stand with that process. So we will probably reach out to him to perform some sort of a formal process.
Mr. Neese's letter to the former borough
attorney, Sam Sorensky, and he responded, you all should have that letter, that we, that we did everything that was, correct. This is, we've been doing this for since 1994, so we pretty much have it, down pat what we're supposed to do. What you had asked, they had asked for particular paperwork from the last time we supplied the borough, and Denise is keeping a folder. I have other things here. I have everything that you could possibly want, and then some. I actually have the minutes of our approval of the historic elements of the master plan, plus I have the notes from Bill Lindsley. Unfortunately, Bill Lindsley passed away, who was the original writer of this, and I'm sure if there was any question, I'm sure he could have cleared it up in 5 minutes, but unfortunately, he's not. But as they say, he wrote it with my input, and we have the data of when we went before the planning board, and I also reached out to Chris Caruso, who was the chairman of the planning board at the time, and asked him about it, and he said absolutely, they approved the historic component to the master plan, plus all of the present homes and sites that are designated. And I also, Denise actually gave me a more recent copy of the ordinance, which actually has everything incorporated into it. That's the most recent thing that you have. That's on computer, that's on the website actually, that people can get. And what it keeps saying is in reference to that. In reference, it has been put into the master plan. We, as the Historic Commission, as you might imagine, are not in charge of the master plan, but we followed all the procedures to do it at the time. And as far as the actual procedure of historic designation, we followed it to the letter, as you see from Sansoret's letter, as we've done many times before. We filed a report that is extensive. The other thing that I might mention also is, besides the Historic Commission, as auspices from the town, in 2006, they asked us to become a CLG, which is a certified local government. And the reason that the town asked us to do that, because the town, should I say, the state puts away a certain percentage of funds specifically for that. So if we needed funds, that we could do that. Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
And part of the requirement of being a CLG, this was in 2006, that the Mayor Watkins at the time signed off, and as Denise actually signed off as borough clerk, was you had to have a historic component of the master plan. Now, if that's something that you want me to get from Trenton, I put in a call to Angela Tiddley, who is the head of the CLG in Trenton, and she was, I guess, away because this is Memorial Day type of weekend. They assured me she'd be back in office tomorrow. I can have that. I have my own copy, but, So I guess at this point, I just don't know where you want us to proceed.
All right,
and how.
I believe Councilman Mignon had some questions, so we're going to...
Yeah, actually, my questions really don't pertain to the Historic Commission. It's really more to do with the way the planning board handled the original, when the historic element was presented to them. And the question I asked was how it was adopted. And it becomes more of a legal issue than it is anything else. It does not seem, based on the written records we have, the minutes and the resolutions of the planning board, that they ever held a public hearing adopting the historic element.
But they did.
No, they adopted it by resolution. They may not have adopted it according to the municipal land use law.
Well, I don't know. As they say,
That's the question. That's the question I've asked. Second part goes to the historic element actually lists 22 properties.
Okay.
The mayor and council only adopted 12 of those 22.
That's
So
right.
it's a legal question again. If the historic element as written was adopted per law, does that override the later ordinance adopted by the mayor? So it's more of a legal question now to see what was adopted when and what takes precedence over what. And then we'll know where we stand with respect to the two properties now that you're trying to designate, because you've already designated them in the historic element.
No. Okay, let me explain that, okay. the historic element has 3 or 4 different parts. One part of the historic element states what we have historically designated locally, and it states the 12 sites that presently we have. The second part of the historic element in the master plan deals with all the sites that are considered historically relevant in River Edge, which is the 2000 survey that we did revise with the county, plus the Bergen County site that was done in 1984. It does not in any way imply that it implies that those are historical, and it does not imply that they are designated, not at all.
It does, well, I'll read from it. It says, "The following historic sites which have been formally designated by the Commission and Borough Council and are included in the master plan are as follows," and it lists the 22 sites.
Okay,
So
well,
that's where my question comes, and
Okay,
I'm
but that-
asking the attorneys to sort procedure out, and that's all I'm asking. I'm not questioning whether your original 22 were correct, whether the 2 you're looking at now are correct. That's a question for another time. I'm just trying to get the procedure down and make sure, to see, because if those 22 were adopted as it says,
they were not.
but I'm going by what, this
I
is
understand, but
the document that was provided by the...
It would have to be a formal procedure, and there was no formal procedure other than the 12. You know, you have to follow the procedure.
Well, the formal procedure shows the 22, because this is the memo from Bill Lindley to the planning board,
Right.
and this is what the planning board adopted.
Okay.
So the planning board adopted the list with the 22 sites. And I said, all I'm asking is for the planning board attorney to review all the documentations and see what was done when, and so we have a clear picture. The mayor had raised the issue about the most recent designations and whether you follow the proper procedures. That hasn't been my concern. I said,
Okay.
my concern, again, is going back to the original and seeing what was done when, and to see what takes legal precedence over what. And then once we know that, then we can move forward one way or the other with the other 2 sites.
Okay, well, as I say, Bill Lindley
Yes,
wrote it, and
unfortunately,
unfortunately,
yes.
he, passed
Yes.
away, so
And
it's
Bill
rather
was a good
difficult.
attorney, and
And-
I would not assume that they would have done anything wrong.
I'm sure that he did
But
everything correctly.
if there's no written documentation, then I leave it up to the attorneys to make the interpretations on what was done, or if it was done
Well,
properly or not,
I
so.
can just go by what other historic commissions do with historic component, then I'll leave it to the attorneys, which is, there's 2 parts of historic master plan, which is the sites that are designated and the sites that are considered historically relevant. And that was, we included everything from the Bergen County survey and our own revised survey in 2000. And that's when I talked to Bill in the input, that's what we discussed, and he said, that's what the CLG, the Certified from Trenton, wants in the thing. But there was a definite clarification. If it's not clear now, I don't know, I'm not an attorney.
I just have the one document.
That's
So
what was done.
if there are other versions of the historic preservation plan element, I'm not aware of. This is I got, I guess, from you to
Yes.
Denise, and Denise forwarded it to me, so. And this is the one that had the cover memo from Bill Lindley to the planning board, so I'm assuming when they refer to this document in the minutes of the planning board meeting, this is the document they're talking about.
Right, and then I have my own minutes from the Historic Commission stating
Yeah, I'm
that it was voted on at that time.
Yeah, and I'm not questioning what the historic commission did, I'm looking what the planning board did first, and then we'll
Okay,
we'll
so
get that
then,
clarified.
I'm a little concerned about the 90-day timeline, so how is that going to be affected?
I don't know.
Tom, can you, are you prepared or capable of addressing Phyllis's question about the 90-day timeline?
Not at this time. I can have it for the next meeting if possible.
What are we up to
I don't have
now?
anything
What day?
We'll
The
pass, I think,
Historic
the
Commission
90
did the
days.
historic designation hearing in October 24th.
Yeah, it's
So that's really,
October.
But
You know.
her question is a valid one. How does it, if we're past the 90 days, you're asking, how
Yeah.
does that impact what the commission
the
did?
ordinance is what, I'm just going by
I mean,
ordinance.
but I'll defer to council and to Mr. Neese. I mean, my reading of the statute is that if the planning board took no action and made no recommendation, then, which is their right to do, it comes back to this council. And so I would think it's with us, but, I'll let them review it. But the main question that supersedes all of that is whether the historic element was actually adopted, and if it properly, and if it wasn't, then we have no authority, nobody has any authority to act to designate those 2 other properties as historic. And it seems like we just have a gap in the record as to whether it was done or not.
Conversely, if they did adopt it, then those sites have already been adopted.
Adopted.
That's my
Yeah.
point. So it depends on what document was adopted, if it was adopted according to the process, and
All right, something tells me at some point, the planning board should probably, if it wasn't done, re-adopt a historic element to put it into the master plan, so that there's no confusion, so that the record is made whole, and then go through the, you may have to go through the properties again, those 22 or whatever, 12, and, redesignate them. I mean, some of those are, homes, but some of them are just, structures, like a sign or the kiosks or something like that, so that may ultimately what has to be done.
I think it's a good point, Councilman Bartoloni. Councilwoman Murphy?
So can we just ask Mr. Neese, would this be something for him to go over and...
well, that's what I asked it to.
Yeah, we held the motion
Right.
until Phyllis was able to speak to us, so I assume we now have a motion.
It's the same motion I made before, that we asked Mr. Neese to...
It's been adopted.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right.
So this 90 days, when is it up again, do you know?
It's already in.
It's gone.
Yeah, it's coming on. All right, is there any more questions?
Okay, and the mayor at last time had asked for specific paperwork, and all of that paperwork was furnished to the, so I don't know.
Ms. Angelo, I appreciate you coming before the council. I thank you for your time, and if we need more information, we'll definitely reach out to you.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary, did you want to say something? We have other members here, I just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
Does anyone else? No? Okay. Joan, did you?
I'm sorry, I'm Joan
CD.
Kristen, I'm on...
Did you just get, okay.
I think I'm just if I could get a quick clarification. Our understanding at our last meeting was that
Hold on.
they were,
If you could
Joan
just...
Kristen, I'm on the
She's a
Historic
new member.
Commission.
Okay.
So when we had
Would you
met
come forward and sit down?
Sure. When we had met previously, our understanding was that there were some minutes from the planning board that were missing when it was originally adopted. So is that what's going to be looked for? That
The minutes aren't missing. The minutes
Okay.
may be incomplete.
Okay.
Because what we're looking for traditionally, and again, I'm not an attorney, so I may be off on the legal process, but if you're going to amend your master plan, there's a certain process you need to follow. It has to be duly advertised, there has to be notice given, there has to be public examination of the documents, there has to be a formal public hearing. That may have all happened. The minutes don't reflect that. All the minutes reflect was that this memo was transmitted to the planning board, and the planning board adopted it by resolution. So I don't know whether it was properly adopted per the municipal land use law. That's why I want the attorney to make that question. Now, why is that important? For two reasons. One, because the document that I was provided, that the planning board ostensibly approved, lists 22 sites as being designated as historic. And it says it was adopted not only by the Historic Commission, but the mayor and council. We know from later ordinances, the mayor and council only adopted 12 of those and then added one later on. So we just really need to set the written record straight, the chronological record straight, and see what happened when, before we go forward and designate more, because either they were designated back in 2002 as part of the original 22, or the plan wasn't adopted. I don't know. So I want the planning board attorney to sort through it all and just put together chronology and give us his
To
opinion.
sort through the minutes, or to sort, I'm just unclear
Well-
to what they're going to sort through.
He's got to look at the reconstructed records and see whether he can say that the master plan element was duly adopted according to the municipal land use law.
Okay, and so would it make sense to us still to pursue in Trenton to see what they have?
I don't know. Do you want us to do
That was never my question, so mine was just more locally on what our planning board did
Okay,
and what they didn't do.
But
And then
Trent is
why-
going under the assumption that we had it since 2006. That's what Joan is referring to.
Yes, I said there have been ordinances adopted subsequent to this planning board issue, but my question is, when sitting on the planning board, I was asked to modify the historic element to include 2 more properties. I'm looking at a plan that already has them in it. That's where we
Okay.
are, so.
Okay. Okay, all right.
Thank you both for
Okay,
coming.
thank you. Thank you.
All right. At this point, let us return to the for discussion part of the agenda, appointment of a Bergen County Community Development Committee. Now, Mr. Negrin, would you please introduce that topic?
If I may ask the Borough Clerk, I believe our appointments are up at a certain point.
They'll be coming, I know, if I may, Councilman Capolara. They will be coming up, you still have to June 30th,
Mhm.
but by the second meeting in June, a decision has to be made. Right now, we have Mr. Aaron Gillian as representative, and Delia Carroll as the alternate.
Mhm.
So just, if you may want to wait for the next meeting, I don't know, but by the second meeting in June, I can put a resolution on to send down to the county.
All right, is there any objection to waiting to our next meeting, and then we need to make a firm decision, it would appear?
Yes.
Seeing no objection, we'll move to work session consent agenda. I'm sorry, I apologize. For your information, Technology Committee meeting with the Riverdale Superintendent and staff members. Mr. Negrin, if you could just introduce that for us?
Yes, I was asked for an update on this, and as you know, the Technology Committee of the Mayor and Council met with representatives of Riverdale. Based on that, the Riverdale computer team and the superintendent came to Borough Hall. They provided us with an assessment and some recommendations. I reached out to Superintendent Fletcher on May 21st, indicating that I'd like to continue a dialogue with him as to those recommendations and what other services they might be able to provide. Unfortunately, he wasn't available. He did email me back saying, when he is available, he'll reach out to me and we can continue that dialogue. So I don't have anything else to report at this time, but I will as soon as I can continue that dialogue with him.
All right, I think the council is anxious to tie up loose ends and get unfinished work done. So hopefully, the superintendent will be available sooner rather than later, and maybe, because we've already budgeted for that, have we not?
Yeah, there's money.
We have some capital budget hardware budgeted. I will tell you, though, that while they made some software recommendations, which, all seem appropriate to me, my question is a question of, can they support us? Can they be the team that will assist us in accomplishing these goals?
Okay.
Can they help us with outside vendors? Can they answer questions for us? Can they provide other assessments and, and serve as sort of a go-to for us? And frankly, it would cost us a lot less to be able to utilize their services. There's no profit, there's no taxes involved. We would certainly compensate them for their time, but it would be a benefit to us because we would not be relying on an outside vendor who would have those costs built into their hourly rates. So I do see an advantage in working with the school district if they have the time available and we can accomplish it at a reasonable rate of compensation.
So is your question based on a doubt that they could achieve it, or is your question based on a desire for them to affirm that they can provide it?
Well, it's up to them to decide whether they have the time to accomplish this. I have no doubt that they have the expertise to do it, but it's a question of whether it fits in with their workload, their schedule, and and how much they can do for us. I don't think we're looking for a lot, especially to start. We have some small projects and things that they've recommended that they can help us accomplish. We're not looking at a very large-scale operation here to begin with. Maybe someday it becomes that. But right now, we're looking to just try and develop a source of assistance to help us with these upgrades.
So you're looking for them to reassure us that this is something that they can make time for in a timely manner?
Yeah, this is strictly up to them as to whether they can serve in that capacity.
Okay. Councilman Barnwine?
No, the thing that we were looking at with them, and we don't know the answer, is whether or not they can free up some space on their server for us as well. They have, I think they have like 3,000 users over there. They have capacity to add more, because each student is an individual user, and then you have the teachers as well, and all the staff. So we really are talking about adding on maybe 50 or 60 additional users. So we wouldn't be taking up much of their server at all. So that's the real question, is whether or not we can piggyback onto what their infrastructure that's already in place. And so that's what we're trying to figure out as well.
That'd be awesome if we
If we
could.
could do that, yeah.
Are you,
Yeah, I'm done.
Councilwoman Murphy?
When we did meet with them, they did seem to kind of indicate that it wouldn't be difficult for them to support us.
Could I, as council president for tonight, ask both of you to reach back out to them in addition to Alan reaching out, so that we could expedite this to whatever degree we can?
Sure, I'll reach out to Marianthi, who's their director of technology.
Excellent, thank you.
No problem.
All right, then we move to unfinished business. Councilwoman Murphy?
Any update with the generator?
Yes,
if I may.
We got a memo.
Got a memo?
I didn't see the memo.
Okay.
We got a memo. There was a memo.
Well, now it's going to be spoken.
Yeah, I issued a memorandum on May 23rd that Denise and I had met with the contractor and the engineer, Ken Del Percio, and the contractor had made a contact with Public Service Electric and Gas. On Wednesday the 29th, the regulators and meters are supposed to be installed by their plumber. Then Cummings, who's the manufacturer, will be called in to do a startup. They'll be working all day there. There will be some power fluctuations several times during the day. We therefore noticed Chief Committee's office so that he could provide alternate plans if necessary. Following that, the public safety building generator is going to be disconnected and removed. A final inspection will be done by Ken Del Percio, and a punch list will be delivered to us, and we'll hopefully accomplish that soon thereafter.
Outstanding. Any other unfinished business? Councilman Barlow?
I brought this up at the last meeting. We have someone that the Special Events Committee would like to nominate as the Grand Marshal for this year's 4th of July Parade. We're in agreement on nominating, and she just left unfortunately, Mary Donahue as the Grand Marshal. I don't know if you want a brief synopsis as to some of her activities.
Just for the record, that would be good.
Sure. Let's see. Mary's a mother of 8, all raised in River Edge. She has 17 grandchildren and 7 great-grandchildren. She's the vice chairwoman of the Newbridge Landing Commission. She's worked tirelessly for the historic Newbridge Landing Commission, the River Edge Historic Commission. She's a former Bergen County freeholder. She was the second elected councilwoman in River Edge, first female administrator in Bergen County. She worked in the foreign language department. She was the chair, actually, of the foreign language department, and taught Spanish and French at Paramus Catholic Boys High School for 26 years. She served on the first St. Peter the Apostle Parish Council. She's authored 2 books on the history of St. Peter's. She currently teaches Spanish 2 hours a week in Teaneck, is a tutor for homebound students of Riverdale High School. She just recently retired from her job with Congressman Steve Rothman. She is very active in the town, certainly well deserving of the honor. So I'd make that motion.
Good, so we have a motion, we have a second?
Yep.
Denise, would you poll the council, please?
Councilman
Yes.
Murphy? Councilman Capola?
Yes.
Councilman Mignon?
Yes.
Councilman Barlow?
Yes.
Councilman Capola?
Yes. Right. Excellent. Do we have any other unfinished business? Cool. New business?
Councilman, sorry.
Councilwoman Murphy.
I just would like to make a request that any unfinished business that we don't take care of be continued to be listed on the agenda until it becomes finished, if that's possible.
They used to do.
All right. Any other unfinished business?
Well, just a point of clarification
Sure.
on that. Are there specific topics? Because, frankly, I get 2-3 dozen assignments every week from this mayor and council.
Mhm.
And, I know during an orientation for each and every one of you, I've done this for many years,
Mhm.
I tell the mayor and council that for every 10 assignments that are given,
Mhm.
only 6 ultimately get done. That's based on a 6-year study that we did when I first became administrator. So unless there are more resources, then we're going to have a long list of unfinished business. because there are, small topics, little things that, go out and, for one reason or another, don't get done the following week. So I certainly understand that there are major projects, that are before the council and are priorities, and we can certainly list those items. But I don't want our office to be criticized for not having a particular item on the list that's unfinished.
It's just for our own, to keep track, because as we go through these agendas, something falls off, we forget about it, and then, it's brought back again. It's just really for our own information to keep track of things.
So I would ask that if you want something specifically listed, that you make that decision and say, please have this listed on the agenda.
Okay.
And then we'll know that that belongs under unfinished business,
Well, how about we work out a compromise? How about that all major projects stay on as unfinished, for instance, HVAC for Borough Hall, and Ms. Don Diego, Borough Clerk, you have any comment too, please offer it. And that if it's not a major item, that council should say that I would like for us to leave this on until further notice. Does that seem, that way we are finding a middle ground to agree upon? So we're saying all majors stay listed as unfinished, so the council can be attentive to those things. Anything that wouldn't be major, we would be responsible for saying, okay, I would like, this is not on our unfinished business list. Could we have this until further notice? What do you think, Councilwoman Murphy?
I think we can give that a try. I mean, I do like to just have the running list until it gets done. But I do have some other unfinished business.
Sure. Ms. Don Diego, does that sound good to you?
That sounds my comment really is to deal with most of it.
Mr. Nagrian, what do you think? Is that
I would
acceptable?
prefer an affirmative on anything that you want listed. I mean, what is the definition of major? That can...
Like Hackensack
differ for
Avenue, is
some
that
of them.
considered unfinished?
I mean, that's been 6-7 years now.
Allen
Hackensack
Avenue.
We will list that. That's been a major project, and I'll have to go back and see what other major projects we have. So that's why I just suggested that, I mean, you can build this, as things come to mind. The DPW roof, well, we haven't talked about it, but that's might be considered a major item by some. And initially I might not list it, but then somebody should put it on. So I was looking for an affirmative listing from the council, which I'm more than happy to put together.
Councilman Capola.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, if we wanted to just keep our own track of what has been unfinished, that'd probably be the easiest thing to do. Then we just depend on ourselves to keep a tally of what we think,
I agree with you, but I think it's a reasonable request that we also have some sort of documentation that keeps it, to keep us on track.
Can we make a dollar amount then? Would that be a definition of what major is?
No, I think we could, I think Mr. Nagrian's right that we could begin to say, this is something that is obviously unfinished, we need to keep it. So I think we have certainly Grove Street, we have Hackensack Avenue, we have
Fifth Avenue,
Fifth Avenue, we have DPW roof, we have the library roof, which is in transit. We have, Councilman Barlow.
I would just, instead of, we have a list of capital projects that money is out there. So maybe if we just kept a list of the capital projects, in your desk drawer, that would probably pretty much take care of most of, the unfinished projects, because there are capital projects. So, and I think Ellen has that, probably has that list. I mean, we created during the budget season, but I think that would probably be just maybe the easiest way is just to keep a list of, the capital projects that there's money allocated but aren't done, and you could just pop it out and go, oh yeah.
Part of our process is to provide the mayor and council with a monthly operating budget report and a capital report. And you may not have gotten that recently because we've had transition and turnover, but we will certainly come back to that practice, and yes, you should get a monthly capital report, which you could reference for any unfinished projects.
That would probably, I think, solve that. I mean, that would be most of the unfinished projects would be on that capital list.
Okay, so if we could just have a short list, because then it's on the computer and you'd just be cut and pasting it from week to week, and that seems to satisfy everyone. It's a good
There's also
compromise.
quality of life things that, small things that people are asking about constantly, like the bus shelters.
Okay.
stuff like that.
So you could just say, from this point on, I'd like to see that, and any of us could do that, and that way it would remain in the forefront of our attention. That's not a bad idea. All right, why don't we try this? If it doesn't work, we can always stop it. But, yes.
I have one other unfinished business question. Did we decide about the Valley Road, the survey for the properties behind that? Have we come to any kind of decision about surveying the properties? We were going to survey 4 properties behind Valley Road.
Yeah, it didn't, just, if I can.
Sure.
I thought Rob said that might get cost prohibitive, and he was just going to go out there and take a look at it.
I think when we spoke with the mayor last time, he said that this is something that, for these 4 properties, we should probably just go ahead and do the survey.
I just remember Rob saying it was going to be costly, and to just let him, he was going to go out there and just see.
It's more costly to have somebody take the land.
Well, why don't we let Alan respond to that? Alan, do you have any recollection?
My recollection was I thought the mayor, Rob, and Borough Attorney were going to look at that. I know in some cases of adverse possession, we have done signposters, to notify the residents that this was actually borough property. We've done that along the Oak Avenue ditch and several other areas. So there may be a number of different ways to look at the adverse possession side of it. There are also license agreements, but I thought there was going to be a field meeting.
I thought so too. That was my recollection, Tom. That you
Mr. Costa
said.
was supposed to go out, and he invited himself and the mayor to go out.
All right.
Hasn't taken place yet, but I'll follow up with him.
Councilwoman Murphy, anything else?
That's it.
Anybody else? Councilman Barloni?
I've
Finished?
I have new business, but
All right.
that's it.
New business?
I just wanted to see, because we're getting into June, if we were going to start having department heads. I know we do this as a matter of practice, but I just want to make sure we schedule it. Having department heads start coming up halfway through the year, see where they're at with their budget, so we know what's the issues, that may be facing the second half of the year.
If that's in the form of a motion, then we'll do it.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Great. Any other new business?
I think that's a good idea. That worked well last year because it seemed like everybody was on track when we asked them midpoint how their budgets work.
Okay. Any other new business? All right. All right, can I have a motion to open the hearing to the public?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstention? Any opposed? No? All right, the meeting is now open to the 2 members of the public who are present. Any comments, questions? If you wish to be seen and heard, please come forward, and please offer your name and address. Having seen none, can I have a motion to close the hearing to the public?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstain? Any opposed? No? Great.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Yes, if we could.
I'll make that motion.
I have a few comments to make.
Do we do comments?
I just wanted to say a few thank yous to...
All right, well, if we, all right, let's, Councilwoman Murphy?
I just wanted to thank Bobby and Jim Conway for all their help and hard work for setting up for Memorial Day. Also to Joe Maggieri for leading the services. I'd like to thank everybody that helped with the water main electric wire break last night. New Milford Fire Department, New Milford Hazmat, River Edge Fire Department, River Edge OEM, River Edge Police Department, River Edge DPW, Bergen County Hazmat, Bergen County Police, Box 54, Bergen County DPW, the DEP, DPW Supervisor John Lynch, especially John Malfi, OEM Tom Smith, and super citizen extraordinaire Neil Carroll, who looks very tired. And to my husband, who was there till 3 a.m. this morning, thank you for all that helped. When I spoke to the mayor today, he said he was very impressed with the quick response and coordination by all involved. He said it was amazing how quickly it had come together. And that's all I'd like to say.
Councilman Capola?
I'd just also like to say thank you to everyone at the OEM, Fire Department, great effort, and that's it.
Councilman Mignon?
No comment.
Councilman Barloni?
No comment. Just one thing I forgot. I thought I saw DPW digging the fence hole posts. for the sign for Joe Majuri Crossing? Do we know when that sign's going to go up, and if there's going to be...
It's very soon.
Yeah, I know it's ceremonial, but if there's going to be anything that, I think we'd all like to be there.
It's going to be within the before school closes.
Okay. Do we have a date?
Not yet.
Time?
We have the posts, we have the signs, and now,
Yeah, no, I know, I just want to know when it's going to be.
there's no date yet.
Okay. If we could just all made aware of the date, that'd be awesome.
Very good. No comment other than the thank you I've already said. We have a motion, we need a second.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstention? Okay, thank you all for coming.